How's it going?
Hi. Okay, so I think we've managed. We don't have 2 meetings running this week.
Starting well. That's good. That's good news.
That's good. You
And
weren't you weren't here this morning though.
oh, I was.
Oh, you were.
Yeah, I was.
You saw everything from the background.
Yeah. 20 minutes.
That was a very painful 20 minutes because I was responsible for sending the link to
Ah,
Fabiano and it didn't work
I mean,
because
we got there in the end.
we did. But, Teams.
Yeah. I mean, I told you, I think I've said it before. It's my favorite program.
Yeah, of all
It's,
time.
yeah.
Best thing of all time. I'm
Yeah.
like, mm.
Beats all the games of my teenage years.
Right.
Beats
All the CAD programs that we've used in our life.
they're not even in the same they're not even on the same list.
No.
I think it's actually a crime to put Teams on the same list as AutoCAD or Revit or Rhino. They just don't stand up.
No.
But hopefully we've got loads of students here that are ready to run this seminar. Did you figure out how to do the attendance thing?
From Teams? No. I'm
Okay.
just doing it manually.
I'll just do a screenshot.
Yeah, please do. I did it this morning. I did the
Oh, great. Thank you.
RM thing this morning. Right. So where is everybody? This morning was painful, I know, but we'll, hopefully we'll ship things a little bit now.
Hmm. And also, if you're here, could you please turn on your cameras?
So we can see your pretty faces.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Any more? Okay.
Yeah.
Two,
Hello. We have
three.
duo. I love that. Are you guys roommates or do you just get together for this class?
Yeah, we are the roommate and we are the classmate too.
Cool.
Anybody else? Hi.
Hello, the usual suspects. I bet everybody else is still in their pajamas. That's why they don't want to open their cameras, right? Like chewing on croissants and what else could you get here in the morning?
Sorry, what? Croissants? What kind of student were you?
Dude, you can get like a pound, like for a pound from Sainsbury's, a pretty decent one, okay? And yes, I was a European student. That's normal breakfast for us, okay?
I mean, you're saying this as if I'm not European.
Well.
Oh,
Kidding.
you probably don't know this about me.
I'm kidding. No, I'm talking about Brexit.
Oh, yeah, I know, but you probably don't know that I'm not British.
Oh, you're not British. Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I
That's
assumed
fine.
you were British because of your accent. So where are you from?
Belgium, Brussels.
Oh, you're from Brussels. Oh my God. Oh, fellow European. Oh.
So I'm also I had a conversation this week about the added inconvenience of having to use our actual passports to travel instead of our ID cards, like I've been doing for the last 15 years.
Right.
So yeah, but I understand that it's not always that obvious that I am.
No, because you have a very a really good. I don't know if it's a London accent, but you can't tell.
Yeah, I went to a European school growing up, so all my teachers were English and Irish. So
Oh
that's
wow, okay.
yeah. Anybody else wants to talk about their um life stories? Seeing as what seeing as we're all sharing. Okay. Did you guys get a chance to read the readings, watch the film? What did you think?
I see a couple of nods. What did you think?
Hi. Hello.
Hi, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so I watched the film and I don't know, it was more about the bridge,
Right.
the height of the bridge. And they're just discussing about why it's lower in just like to divide the society. Kind of political.
What did you think about the film?
What did I think about the film? In what ways?
Sorry, say that again.
Like in what a sense?
Um, did you understand the underlying issues that the film was trying to talk about? Did you um, think about such measures in the urban realm beforehand? Was it interesting to you? Was it boring? Did you know about that already? Yeah. What did you think?
So one of this expert, he tried to make the Long Island Road bus route, which he wasn't aware of the height of the bridge. So he just went up and down the road to see, but he felt like something is missing. And then he came to know that the height of the bridge is lower, so the bus can't pass through. Only some 9 inches, I think, the height of the bridge, or not the cars of height up to 9 to 10 inches can pass through. And later on, when he went to his senior to tell this problem, then he was like, I knew it already, and you're just having a the what do we say, like they knew beforehand that this project is not going to work, but they still let him do the survey.
Does anybody else want to jump in on that?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I watched the film too, and I think the side for the low bridge, they were especially for the white people.
and they say they didn't allow the bus or some track to end the to own the railway. And I think it is mean that our design were related to the political. I don't know.
Is this something you were aware of beforehand? Is this something where you have examples maybe from your home city that elucidate this kind of view of public infrastructure and its inherent politicalness?
Let me think.
Hi, I'd like to share about the experience. Like, there's a very small, tiny village, not even on the maps of India.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you 2 secs. Thank you for jumping in to share there. GIE, we're going to come straight back to you, so think about it in the back of your head. I want to hear what you have to say too. Okay? Cool. Go ahead.
So there's a very tiny village in India. I've been there, and the some political person is from that village. Like, his roots are from that village, and somehow his wife stays there, and that is why he built a. He just, what do we say, the he obviously uses our taxpayers' money to build a road just from his old house to his wife's house, and entire village doesn't have roads. So that is how political powerful people use their powers and our taxpayers' money to, you know, be more comfortable with.
Wow.
That's just a very tiny example, but this I felt is very bad.
But also example that's kind of relevant, you know. So yeah, thank you. In case you haven't already figured it out, we are transitioning towards a methodology of running seminars where you run it. So today we're going to let you guys talk. We're here for questions, we're here for comments, but it's your seminar. You guys take ownership.
Hi. I just had another example in my head. So this is a very huge example. Trump had to visit India for, I don't know, some campaign, American Indian people election wise. So he came to India for a visit, and our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he and Mr. Trump, they were going to go to visit the biggest stadium in the world, which is built in Ahmedabad, Gujarat. So the road from the airport to uh, the stadium, it goes through a small town where there are slums and a poor area. So they built a wall to, like, cover cover the view, like just to pass through the road. So that again was very disgusting. Instead, he could have, like, tried to develop the area, make it more good, or rehabilitate the people staying there. But instead, he built a wall, which was very easy. Like, building walls is their thing.
GIE, do you have any examples of your own?
Yeah, yeah. In our country, our land all belongs to the government, and for some help, government will provide housing, which is rent to the poor, and the rent for this housing is so low. And in where I live, there are housing costs security housing for the poor people, but they in the center of our town. They are always have the infrastructure in there is not very good. It's very different area compared to our area, but we are in the same town. It seems like a two picture. So this is in where I live is my experience.
Wow, thanks for sharing. Does anybody else want to jump in?
By the way, I've added a file to the chat. I don't know if you guys can see it, with your questions for this week. Thank you so much for sending questions and comments. I've highlighted a few that stood out. Not that the other ones weren't good. I think that all of the questions were really good. I've just highlighted some that I thought were interesting, and perhaps you can use them as pointers for discussion. You can start with a question. Whoever posed the question can, ask their audience and, start the conversation from there. So, for example, here, is the gentrification of cities inevitable? I think that's a really good question. When large companies, real estate developers, chain retail giants, and middle-class consumers enter a community, they are bound to bring their aesthetic tendencies and consumption habits here, thus changing the form of the original community. This has raised concerns, including but not limited to rising rents, rising living costs, the destruction of fabric of the community, the relocation of the original residents who have lived there for decades, and even the total destruction of the original culture. How can the development of urban public space avoid the harmful effects of gentrification? I think that's a really good question. Would the author of this question like to come forward, please?
Rusheng Pan.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Actually, I was thinking about because the development of the cities will never stop. So when poor people want to development a new city, then the land of the price of the land or some infrastructure will also become more expensive to the local people, which lead many people have to leave their original house. So that's really a serious question in the city development. So I think when the government have a philosophy to change the city, should we have a better consideration about the local people, like how to how to say, like to improve their life, but not let them to lose their live place, something like that.
Thank you. That's a really good question. Does anyone want to comment on that? Perhaps from their own experience or in relation to what you've read this week? I'm going to put the question in the chat box so people can see it. It's yellow. Sorry about the yellow and the highlight. I think there's something wrong with my camera, so I'm in the dark. I'm like a dark figure. Oh, there it is. Okay. I think it's because the lighting is in the back. Come on, guys. Is that such a difficult question? Does nobody have an opinion on this?
Oh, okay. I wanna share experience in Wuhan, like in the city, in the center of the city, is a famous commercial street named Zhanghan Road, and this city is used to be a retail street. Like when the night coming, many residential will sell some small stuff. But after the Zhanghan Road was rebuilt, these local businesses were forced to move out because the government think this kind of retail may not very beautiful to the city view. So they have to move out. But actually, the government set up another real street, which is near the Zhanghan Main Road. So now it's also like a very famous industrial in that street. It gives the regional residential a chance to continue their business, but also let this place have more better control with the government.
Okay, so if I understood correctly, the residents could maintain some of their businesses, right?
Yeah.
So were they involved in the design process, in the redesign process of the area?
Oh, I think so. Actually, at the beginning, the government didn't consider them, but when they rebuild this place, they may find this problem, and they give the residential people another chance.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And we saw a kind of, I mean, I don't know if it's similar, but we saw a practice of participation and including residents in a design in last week's, was it last week's film? No, 2 weeks, was it 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, I think, with Alejandro Aravena and the Elemental Project in Latin America, where you know, it was essentially what started as a slum clearing project ended up being a participatory design project where people could actually get involved in the design and choose what was important for them to include in their housing, and also enabled them to have a decent home with running water, for example. So participatory design would definitely be one of the things to consider when we're talking about gentrification. And of course, there are different forms of participation and participatory design. If you're interested in finding out more, a very, very key reading on participation is by Sherry Arnstein. It's actually a paper that's over 50 years old now, but it's still very, very relevant because she talks about the different levels of participation, different levels of political participation in design and city planning, and how participation can take many forms, and it can be in the form of kind of telling people or presenting a ready-made plan, and not asking people for their opinion and just saying this is what's going to happen here. Kind of information sessions, which happens a lot and gets, you know, translated as participation. And she calls that a form of tokenism, where people are just told what
How wild is that though? Like that is on the scale of participation. Like, I mean, obviously in this country we've got like public consultations and stuff, and at the very best they're things that change design, the things that people take on the comments and worries from people in the kind of neighboring kind of communities and stuff. But the majority of the time it's just, we did it, we took loads of pictures, we've put them in our design and access statement, give us planning.
Yeah.
So funny.
Here are the renders.
Yeah.
Final product is not going to look like that at all.
Yeah. But thanks for your comments.
Thanks for your comments. Thanks for showing up and being interested in what's happening in your neighborhood.
Yeah, go
but
ahead.
Get it anyway.
Take as many rich tea biscuits as you like. Take as many as you want. Don't worry, Shireen. Why did I think of that? Oh, you said Shireen before. Okay.
Yeah.
I also share something.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. We all said we should ask her. No. We should like ask the local people to give us advice and in the developing of urban public space. And I also we should like capture the environments of the city, like their culture, economy, or something. They can help them make their public space more special, more local, not like always the same public space. Or I think so.
So you're saying that participation leads specifically to the design and delivery of public space that is specific to that place. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the Tesco in every city is the thing. So we we should make our public space more specific, more let people to see they are special, I think. It's like a symbol of a city, like this.
Thank you.
There's a really good question that adds to that in one of this week's comments by Hang Fan. City citizens are not designers. When we plan a city, we ask them for their opinions or ideas. If we ask them of their opinions and ideas, it will affect the design. If we introduce too much public participation in urban planning, will urban planning become unprofessional? I think that's a really good question. Would the author like to come forward? Do you think there's such a thing as too much public participation?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Actually, in my opinion, let me see my question. In my opinion, the citizens in the cities are not the designers or architects. Maybe they are not professional in the city planning, but we can't ignore their opinions in their lives or in their communities. So my question is that whether their opinions or their influence will affect the design or affect the city planning or the development of the city. So yeah, that's my question.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, does anybody have any opinions or observations on this?
I want to hear other people what they have to say about it.
I got really excited there, and I was about to like blurt out, and I was like, no.
This is a really good question, and I want to hear the students and some. Please come forward if you haven't spoken so far. Please give us your take on this. We want to hear more voices.
So maybe I can change the way to explain my question. I'd like to know if we bring too much public participation into the urban planning or city planning, will the urban planning become more unprofessional? Yeah, this is what I really want to know. Yeah.
Okay. I think the opinions of the public are very important, but how to choose and reject this suggestion should be judged by professional people like the designers or government.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, I think so.
Does anybody else have any opinions or any comments, or has seen where this has happened, or has an idea of how you can democratically facilitate these processes?
I mean, design comes in different forms as well, and you have different scales, just to help you guys out a little bit, right? So you have design when it comes to public buildings, you have design of public spaces, you have design of housing, you have many different forms of participation as well. Hang on, we have a comment in the chat. Maybe the profit generated by the public space will not be realized, because this does not mean that the profit is zero. Maybe it can become a tool for profit generation instead of the profit itself. Right, so how do we define profit? What do you understand with the word profit? How do we understand profit in the city?
Yeah, we're really looking to you, CJ, to kind of maybe elaborate on your point, because I think it's a very important or interesting point.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Maybe can be divided into two parts. Some real profits are liquid currency or have monetary value. And the other part is a positive influence on places provided by the public or to the public. This can also be regarded as profit. Yeah, I agree very much. So what we understand as a positive influence doesn't necessarily need to have a monetary value, right? So public space provides something to people, to the quality of their everyday life, to their well-being, their physical, mental well-being, that cannot, if you ask me, should not, although it has been put into a bracket with a price on it. What do you guys think? Come on, guys. You can do it. Write it in the chat. Say it with your voice. You must have an opinion about this. So one of your colleagues said define profit as something that can be both monetized and doesn't or shouldn't, and as something that shouldn't be. Something that, you know, provides a public service essentially to people. It provides a space for recreation, it provides a space for health, it provides a space for physical activity, something that cannot be put in a bracket, something that we can't put a money value to it, right? Perhaps we can extend this with another question by one of your colleagues. If there is no profit in public space, who will manage public space? How to keep them, and I'm going to pose a question here, who is them? How to keep them enthusiastic about space management? Who do you think should manage public space? Anybody? There's no right or wrong answers. We're just having a conversation.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Yeah, actually, it's my question that put on Moodle. The reason I wrote the question is that in China, people get their job by their profit. Yeah. For example, if the people manage the public space, the government or the council will pay them for their labor or for their management. But you know, the people in China are very real. If they are paid less, and they will do less. Yeah. So I like to ask if is it a common phenomenon in the UK or in Europe as well? Yeah.
I think it depends on the culture.
Mhm.
I think it's difficult to put Europe, the entire continent, in one kind of category. And it also depends on the local kind of laws and regulations, how public space is maintained and regulated. So, for example, as far as I know, in the UK as well as in the US, you have public-private partnerships where where a park, for example, is maintained by the business owners of the shops around that park.
Mhm.
And then those they pay an extra tax for the park, for the public space to be maintained. And the local council arranges for private company, a private maintenance company, to maintain that space. And then the money from the taxation gets put into that. In a number of European countries, the maintenance of public space is due to is the responsibility of the local council. So the local council pays for the maintenance, and that again is from essentially taxpayer money. So your taxes go towards the maintenance of the public space. It's interesting what you said, that people get paid to maintain the space and they get an incentive. I think it's also like, having experience from both kind of North Europe and South Europe, there's a difference in how we understand public space and what public space is. So for example, in Southern Europe, people will take more care or better care of their own homes and their own properties, and they won't consider it as important to maintain or to take care of something that is public and that is used by others. They rarely have this collective responsibility, I would say. My experience from Northern Europe says the opposite, that people will, of course, look after their own property, but they will also have a sense of responsibility. And the thought behind that is, if I'm using the space and someone else is using the space, it's beneficial for all of us if we all take care of it.
Yes, that's a real nice phenomenon.
Yeah, it is.
Europe,
It is.
I think, I mean, hearing it kind of formulated like that, I never really thought of it in that way, because even with kind of views on kind of public space, I feel like in the south of Europe, that there's more of a kind of overt appropriation of that space throughout the year, right? Obviously, it's because of like temperature, etc. But whereas in the north of Europe, I mean, if they're used at all, they're only really used in the kind of spring and summer months. But yet, that kind of ownership and that sense of like collective responsibility is just so interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, of course, people need incentive. I would say people always need incentives, and you could say that high taxation in the north is one of those incentives as well. It's not only, so I would say it's a combination of factors. A combination of kind of local laws and regulations and how those become implemented. So, in the South, you could have a more kind of relaxed, law provision and kind of more relaxed sense of what does it mean to get a fine? When do I get a fine? What do I get charged for, and how do I get charged? In the north, if these laws are more strictly implemented, then that's also another factor why people are more conscious. So I would say it's a combination of factors that drives this this culture of how we treat and how we interact with public space. We have a couple of comments in the chat. I think the government should take the main responsibility in it. Public services have many connections with the government. We pay taxes, and every penny of taxpayers may be spent on different public services, and public space may be another form of taxation. Yes. We have paid for the construction of our own public space. Yes, pretty much. And another comment, I think it is based on the national situation and social system because it will involve the ownership of land. Yes, that's also correct. Like in China, the government is usually in charge. Anyone want to add to that from their own hometown, their own experience?
Okay. But I have different opinions about this because in China, I think public space is more like management by developer, like some company, because the construction of many space is decided by the different company. So, like Chinese real estate developers overbuild public space when they build residential areas because it required by the government. For example, after the construction of many residential buildings, these companies must build some like small commercial areas or public space to let this living residential have a place to do their like daily to have a place to communication or something. So this company, in order to attract more people to buy their house or to attract more people to visit this area, they have to make this place beautiful and they have to manage this place.
Okay, thank you for that. Anyone want to comment on that? I want to hear other people's experience from China. If they agree, if they disagree, if they have something to add.
Yeah, I agree with Peng, but I think some large park or some more how to say public space like square, they are in charge by the government, I think. But some small public space in the resident area, they were charged by the developers. Yes, I think.
So what kind of problems does it create when a developer is in charge of a public space?
I think they just want to make a profit. So.
And how does that profit kind of manifest? Like last week we were talking about the idea of who benefits from this, you know, and how. What do you think is the case in this situation? Because I think the answer to that question has a very kind of explicit kind of consequences for the urban design and urbanism of cities. So who profits how? Maybe how is the key question.
For the developers, like a shopping center, they will always create a public space like square to attract people to buy something. So I think they use this public space to make a profit.
Thank you. Does anybody have anything else to add, to comment, to
Yeah, I think I agree with Jai, because the many company, like some developer, if they want to construction a building, they may only consider the needs of the part of group, like what kind of group will use this place. So they will do their best to consider this kind of group. So many this is a reason why many public space become more personal.
What do you mean when you say personal?
Like this not for all the people, just for a part of people.
Okay, we've got a comment from Sija Wu. I'm going to read it out, but will you turn on your camera and maybe kind of more directly involve yourself in the conversation? This may be reversed. The part about commercial public spaces, the welfare that commercial companies give us because our consumption makes them profitable, and they also provide us with such a place, and this is a new round of consumption chance. The public space will gradually become commercialized. Thank you for that comment. Do you mean that the public space is commercialized? Because before you say that this is space that's been provided for us.
We have another comment before that.
Oh.
Li Hui. Sorry, I'm horrible at pronouncing your name. But that's what you get, guys, for not showing up, for not opening your cameras. I think the development of public space is not profitable. Generally, in China, developers will help the government to do the preliminary development. Later use will return to the government. The government will compensate the developer from other places, such as allowing them to develop some commercial housing in the area. Yes, that also, these kinds of partnerships also happen in the UK a lot, and in the European context and in the US context as well. This is partly what an example of that is the public-private partnerships that I spoke about before. The thing with profitability, I would say, that's one of the issues from the get-go, that in order for something to be built, it needs to be profitable. I mean, it's the reality of it, but perhaps it's worth thinking about mechanisms where that is not the only factor. And I think that construction in general has pretty much taken the wrong turn in the past few years, as fast as possible, as big as possible, and as profitable as possible. So and here, I think I want to make a point here to some of the one of the ratings that we had this week talked about architecture being political. And if you understand from the reading, it's not about connecting architecture to politics. It's about architecture being inherently political. Architecture is political because all of these things are involved in architecture, because we have to think about profit, because we have to think about the role that the government plays in what gets built and what doesn't get built, and what the developer wants to develop and for whom. So all of these aspects are political. We don't necessarily connect them to politics ourselves. They become political because they are part of the process. And that's one way that architecture essentially is political.
I'm trying to find who said that quote. Andrés Jacques. Architecture is always political, quote unquote. Is anybody here, is that view and that comment new to anybody in the group? Or let me just read this comment that's just come out by Sajia. The public space that the government provides to us is typical and may not be distinctive and the same. And everybody is just an area for normal activities, but the public areas built by commercial companies may be more attractive. They can make the public space areas beautiful. Many people are attracted to pictures and they may buy something in the commercial area, by the way. So I think this is the point you're really trying to hammer home, Sajia. I get the impression. That the creation of these public spaces in these areas by these kind of private entities, either by themselves or in collaboration with the government, is the creation is to up profits in sales of like their developments, etc. I think that's the point you're trying to make. Am I right? I know your camera's broken, but is your mic as well? Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna copy and paste a comment question that was posted in as the questions. And I think this is one that's quite interesting, so please feel free to kind of jump in. And Sajia, I'm assuming that because your camera and your microphone is broken, that you will jump in on this straight away and lead the conversation for us all. Thank you very much. What are the problems caused by the privatization of cities? Does everybody understand the question?
Okay, I want to say in this situation, the people in the city may lack of sense of belonging because like we are living in the same city, but I may be discriminated against in some places because of my consumption level or state.
Sorry, could you repeat that again? You were cutting out.
Oh, okay. I think in this situation, the residential may lack of sense of belonging, because, like for example, we all living in the same city, but I may be discriminated against in some place, because of my consumption level or state, like this.
So you're basically talking about the creation of different tiers that are directly associated to your economic participation. Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
How much, essentially, how much money you spend, kind of thing. How much money you have.
yeah. So you will feel maybe you don't belong this city, or like this.
That's a really, really good point. Does anybody want to jump in on that? Maybe I'll just read Shajia Wu's comment. There may be problems with the government's supervision of the region. For example, there are many spaces in the city that citizens use privately. Maybe this is not allowed. Some places may be orderly in urban planning, but privatization will destroy this. Does anybody have any reaction to this?
Yes. Yeah. I think if the land becomes too private, everybody want to sell their, not everybody, just some people want to sell their land for the profit, and then will make their market will make the market worse. People will always they will running a competition. Maybe will make the value for the land it's not always good. Maybe they, the rich people, they have more land, they have more value, and the poor people can't get their land. So the generation gap between them will be bigger.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Anybody else want to jump in?
Yeah, in my opinion, the privatization of the cities, I mean, such projects occupying the scarce urban resources and their revolutions process. This can be collectively referred to as urban privatization. Yeah, but the Patrick Schumer said the process of human urbanization is also a war of resources between the classes. So I think every coin has its two sides. So the privatization of the cities both have the advantage and the disadvantage. Yeah. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, thank you. What does everybody else think about the advantages and disadvantages of privatization? We have a comment here in the chat. I would understand what impact privatization of land would have. Personally, I think it might slow down the pace of urban development. Okay. For example, the urban villages in Shenzhen are basically owned by farmers or village collectives. But when the city needs to be developed, there will be resistance from many sides. But from another point of view, slowing down the pace of urban development may also be a good thing. Okay. What do you think about the displacement of the farmers? Do you think the farmers want to give away their land? Okay, this is interesting. So what do the farmers get as in exchange for their land? Do they get, does the government pay them for getting their land in order to develop it? If anyone else knows, feel free to jump in. So let me ask you this. If agricultural production in China is mainly done through small village farming, are we talking about farmers? So I'm trying to understand what kind of urban villages we're talking about. Are we talking about urban villages where there is agricultural production, or are we talking about urban villages that are essentially leftovers from previous communities, older communities, and they no longer have an agricultural production. Okay, so the farmers are actually the ones who profit, and the ones who suffer are the tenants who live in the farmers' houses, who will be driven to the more marginal parts of the city or even leave the city because of the new development. Okay, okay. Wow, okay, that's interesting. Does anyone else have experience of this?
Or does anybody else have a different experience of this that they want to put forward? There's no right or wrong answers, guys. We're just trying to get your opinions on things. Please don't be afraid to come forward. Okay, we have a response. So perhaps in China, farmers do not demand land privatization. It is not necessary. They rely on the state to provide them with land use rights, participate in agricultural cooperatives, and are linked with businesses. The profits of their people have far exceeded the value of the land itself. Okay, that's interesting. That's usually not something that you hear about farmers. So from what I understand, they get a lot of incentives in a way. So why do they get all these incentives?
And how do they participate in agricultural co-ops? Does anyone have a different experience? Okay, in China.
Another.
Sorry, go ahead, Ewa.
No, you.
In China, the government has come up with many ways to support farmers and eliminate poverty. The government will provide some financial support to farmers and select some experimental villages, and then let other farmers know the benefits of cooperating with the government and businesses so that they will have motivation, okay, to manage farmland allocated by the state. I see. So the farmland is essentially owned by the state. That's interesting.
Does anybody want to react to this at all?
Yeah, I think maybe some enterprises and some companies can participate in the agricultural stock cooperation, and they can both get profit from it. So maybe the farmers can um, get richer, or and enterprises and the companies can get profit from it too.
Does anybody want to come back on that? Okay. If nobody else has anything else to add, maybe we just leave it there. But I mean, a closing conclusion, well, not conclusion, but closing kind of statement. These seminars are meant to be an avenue for conversation between yourselves under our supervision with regards to the text and the themes that have been put forward, right? So it's very important that people kind of participate and really kind of try to get the best or the most out of these sessions. That's why the questions every week are so important. So I think at the very basic level, I think we've got one left next week. So at the very basic level, I mean, I would like everybody to put forward questions, you know, so that we can have a conversation. Yeah, this.
Yeah, sorry. The questions, they don't need to be existential questions. They don't need to be general. They can be something that you didn't understand in the text, and that's perfectly fine. This is not, you know, the seminars are not an exam. We're not assessing how well you understood the texts. We're offering the readings as a way for you to engage and try to understand, you know, different theories about the urban. So, you know, your questions can be directed at a particular paragraph in a text. It can be directed at a term which is being explored in a text and that you didn't understand because the writing was too complex. It could be about, you know, specific things in those texts that seem difficult or that you would like to analyze more. You know, there's no kind of right or wrong question or answer. It's more about, you know, trying to help you guys understand what the authors say, connect it to your experiences and your knowledge from your backgrounds and your previous, you know, engagement with your studies or practice or anything in that sense. So, you know, try to kind of expand on your questions next week a little bit, make them more specific to the texts. Yeah, and I think that will kind of help the conversation a little bit as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. See you next week.
Oh, by the way, before you go, I posted the presentation groups on as a Moodle announcement. So you'll see yourself, most of you will see yourself paired up with someone else, collaborate, talk to yourselves about how you're going to do this. And yeah, have a good week, and we'll see you next week.